The First Black Gay President, Chapter 4, Season Finale, The Presidential Residence Bedroom, 5:43 a.m. It's the morning of the biggest signing of his presidency, and President DeAndre Whitfield is in bed with his husband, saying with his body what he hasn't been able to say out loud in weeks. We open on sound, the sound of controlled breathing from a man who is holding something in, effort and restraint running together. Then Gabriel, the first gentleman, the man who gave up Oakland and a whole life to stand beside this presidency, let out a sound that wasn't meant for anyone but his husband. "Don't run from this, baby," DeAndre said. "Take this wood like you took his wood in the map room last night." The president had had his husband face down in the sheets early in the morning. Gabriel's hands were at the headboard, palms flat, fingers finding the edge of it, and he was not running from his husband's morning wood. He was doing the opposite of running. He was pushing back into every stroke, body open and receiving and asking for more of what DeAndre was giving him, because what his husband was giving him this morning was something Gabriel had never had from this man before. This is what I've been missing, Gabriel thought. This side of him, this power. DeAndre's chest against his back, warm skin and solid muscle. Gabriel could feel him everywhere. The grip at his hips, the power of DeAndre pressing him into the mattress, the way DeAndre's thighs kept him exactly where he wanted him. His body was saying what he couldn't say out loud. Gabriel knew what DeAndre was mad about. He had known when he felt DeAndre's hands find him in the dark, before a single word was spoken. As DeAndre drove deeper, Gabriel thought about the gala, about how Preston had him bent over that map table in the most important room in this building, while his husband, DeAndre, was upstairs running the country. DeAndre's hand moved to the back of Gabriel's neck, a firm grip. Gabriel let his face go into the pillow, taking a breath whenever DeAndre let him up for air. "Damn, baby, you feel so warm. I can feel all of you." DeAndre started to thrust even harder. His palm slid from Gabriel's neck to his mouth and turned his head. "Look at me." Gabriel looked at him. "I see you, baby," Gabriel said out loud. "Then stop holding back. I want to feel you let go." DeAndre whispered in Gabriel's ear. "I'm close, Mr. President." Gabriel's hands grabbed the headboard again. "Baby, don't you stop. I want this. I have always wanted this. Give me all of it," is what Gabriel thought. "Give it to me, Dre," he said into the sheets. "All of it. Give me all of your anger, baby." DeAndre gripped tighter onto Gabriel's hips. Gabriel's name came out of him like he'd been holding it underwater. 16 years of marriage to this man, nothing compared to this feeling. They came together in unison. Afterward, Gabriel on his back, one arm over his eyes. DeAndre beside him, looking at the ceiling. The day was already peeking through on both of them. Neither of them moved for a while. "You could just ask me about what happened with Preston," Gabriel said eventually. "I don't have questions about Preston," DeAndre said as he walked to the closet to get dressed for the day. Outside the master bedroom, the corridor. A few feet away from the president's bedroom door, Secret Service agent Mateo Cruz is standing exactly where he's supposed to be, and hearing exactly what he shouldn't be hearing. Mateo Cruz had been on post since 3:30 this morning. He had been standing outside the president's bedroom door when it became impossible to pretend he wasn't hearing what he was hearing. The headboard. The sound of it banging against the wall. Gabriel's voice. The sound of a man being taken completely apart and not asking for it to stop. And underneath it, DeAndre. The controlled exhale of a man who had learned to hold himself together in every room in this building, coming undone on the other side of a door. Mateo had stood outside 100 times before, but never like this. Never sounding like that. He knew that sound. He had pulled it out of the president himself. In the treaty room, with the rain coming down and the city below them, and DeAndre's hands bracing the wall, while Mateo took him apart from behind. The President of the United States, who ran every room he walked into, who never gave anything away, giving everything up to him. Mateo hadn't stopped thinking about it. As he listened to DeAndre please his husband the same way Mateo had pleased him, he was instantly rock hard. The sounds coming through that door were doing something to him that the entire federal training apparatus had no protocol for. His imagination was filling in the images without his permission. DeAndre's voice, Gabriel's body receiving it. He pressed one palm, slow, against his thighs. He came right there, standing at attention in the corridor outside the president's bedroom, mouth shut, eyes on the far wall. Previously on the first black gay president, President DeAndre Whitfield, the first openly black gay man to hold the office, is moments away from signing the most consequential legislation of his presidency, the American Covenant Act. Healthcare for 30 million Americans. His legacy, if this is where the first term ends. His husband, Gabriel, a housing activist who gave up a life he'd built from scratch so the man he loved could try to build something bigger. Brilliant, patient, and standing 3 feet to DeAndre's right for 4 years, while the country watched his husband and never thought to ask how Gabriel was doing. At the administration's final gala, Gabriel slipped away from the ballroom with Preston, community organizer, a man Gabriel had been thinking about since the first time they shook hands. And what happened between them in the map room is something President DeAndre felt the next morning before a single word was spoken. Secret Service agent Mateo Cruz. Hazel eyes that go gold in the right light. 3 years protecting the president's body. On the night of the gala, that protection crossed a line it cannot uncross. President DeAndre finally let what had been building between them for 3 years happen. He gave Mateo something he has never given Gabriel. He let Mateo take him. All of it. And the president, who controls every room he walks into, gave up that control completely. Both men have been thinking about what that means ever since. Chief of Staff Ayanna Briggs knows things about everyone in this building. She always has. The question is never what Ayanna knows. The question is when she decides to use it. The West Wing, 7:14 a.m. Chief of Staff. Ayanna Briggs is watching the usual roundup of political morning shows. She stood at the edge of the room with her tablet watching the TV screen. Just 20 minutes ago, she'd gotten a text message from her connect inside the D.C. Police Department. Darius, the butcher, the man she sent Mateo to with Representative Hargrove's dead body in his trunk, had been picked up by authorities in connection with Hargrove's murder. Shit, is all Ayanna could think. Capitol Report was on in the senior staff room, the political roundtable show that had been running non-stop anti-Whitfield administration propaganda since DeAndre took office. The show ran on the national media network. A Texas oil billionaire named Roland Voss had quietly acquired the network the week after DeAndre's election. David Cole, anchor for the network, spoke to the camera.
The president plans to sign the American Covenant Act this afternoon. 4 years in the making, saved by a last-minute changed vote, and now 2 hours from becoming law. The president's Supreme Court pick, Judge Renata Okafor-Price, is in her 3rd day of confirmation hearings as we speak. Full table this morning: Marcus Allain, former Deputy Policy Director; Claudette Shaw, political correspondent; and Sidney Boateng, conservative commentator. Let's jump right in.
Marcus Allain, former Deputy Policy Director, responded first.
30 million people get healthcare today. That is the story. 4 years of being told what this president couldn't do. Well, he did it anyway. Whatever you think about the man the bill passed.
Claudette Shaw, political correspondent, followed.
And let's be clear, the American people wouldn't need a government healthcare overhaul if this administration spent less time on identity politics and more time on economic policy that actually puts people back to work. Families are struggling because of the spending this White House has pushed through, not in spite of it. And frankly, when you have a president more focused on what happens in his bedroom then what's happening in living rooms across this country? People notice. People have a right to notice.
Cole turned to the third panelist.
Sydney, what are you seeing?
Sidney Boateng answered without hesitation.
What I'm seeing is a celebration being thrown by an administration that has a dead congressman and zero answers. Gerald Hargrove is dead. My reporting connected him to a back-channel network of dirty money that leads directly back to people in that White House.
She leaned forward slightly.
I'll say what a lot of Americans are thinking, but are too afraid to put on television. When you have a president who has made his personal life the centerpiece of his public identity, what happened to a person's character meaning more than their identity? And they are betting that you are too distracted by the signing ceremony to ask these questions.
Elaine pushed back, leaning into his microphone.
Sydney, your own reporting puts the actors in this story outside this administration, outside that White House. So I have to ask, because the audience deserves the honest version, are you reporting or are you connecting dots that aren't actually connected?
Sydney didn't blink.
Marcus, when a man who was actively running a blackmail operation against members of this administration turns up dead in the rain outside the White House, and the people with the most to gain go silent, that is the dot. I'm not connecting anything. I'm pointing at what's already there and asking why nobody in this room wants to look directly at it.
Claudette Shaw responded.
I mean, look, I'm not saying the administration is lying. I'm saying this White House has never met a distraction it didn't love. A dead congressman? That's practically a scheduling conflict for these people. They'll issue a statement, pivot to the Covenant Act, and by Thursday, the president will be back on the cover of a magazine looking like the future of America. Which, to be clear, is a big problem, just a very well-positioned one for this administration.
Sydney smiled.
See, even Claudette can't defend them with a straight face anymore. That's growth.
Cole wrapped the segment.
We'll take a break. Judge Okafor Price, confirmation hearings, when we come back.
Ayanna clicked the television off. Sidney Boateng's reporting on the Hargrove case was gaining steam. Ayanna needed to give the police a real suspect, someone whose hands were dirty enough to absorb the scandal. But she would need Mateo's help for that plan. The Senate Judiciary Committee hearing room, 9:17 a.m. In a room full of senators looking for a reason to say no to her appointment, Judge Renata Okafor Price is making it very difficult for them to find one. Judge Price, 4th Circuit, 19 years on the federal bench, a Supreme Court nomination this administration had made because she scared the right people. Dark suit, natural hair, glasses she used like punctuation. Southeast D.C., 2 generations deep. She understood what this Supreme Court seat meant in a way the men across from her were constitutionally incapable of understanding. Senator Caldwell, ranking member Tennessee, the kind of man who had learned to wear his racism like a good suit.
Judge Okafor Price, you have a history of rulings that many Americans read as judicial activism rather than judicial restraint. I want to give you an opportunity this morning to reassure this committee and the public that you understand the role of a justice is to interpret law, not to make it.
I appreciate the opportunity, Senator. I've been interpreting law for 19 years, 312 opinions, 0 reversals on constitutional grounds. I'm familiar with the role. Backstage on a monitor, Isaiah Boateng watched Senator Walsh try to corner Renata Okafor Price with a polling argument, and watched her dismantle him in 4 sentences without raising her voice. That's what I want to do one day, Isaiah thought. That's exactly what I want. The Supreme Court. He admired how she took up the full space of that room, how she had decided, before she ever sat down, that she was done caring how much of herself was acceptable in that hearing. Isaiah had come out and taken this job on the same phone call. He had been managing how much of himself was acceptable in every room of this building for 4 years. Someone called his name from down the corridor. He walked away from the monitor and left something there he wasn't sure he was going to pick back up. The Oval Office, the Covenant Act signing ceremony. After 4 years, 30 million Americans are about to get health care, and the man who made it happen is about to say what he actually thinks about the people who tried to stop him. Flags flanking the resolute desk, press pool against the back wall. 30 people in a room built to end up in history books. Vice President Adrienne Cole, first black woman to chair Senate Finance, the one person in Washington who'd bet on DeAndre. DeAndre stepped to the desk. He skipped his prepared remarks and went for something unplanned. I want to talk to the people who tried to stop this legislation. Generations of delay. Years of senators holding their hand over their heart at veterans parades and voting against veterans coverage 9 times in one session. 30 million Americans can see a doctor tomorrow morning. I want to thank the opposition, publicly, for making it so clear who they were willing to let die to stop this from happening. I hope your constituents will remember what you did. He picked up the pen and signed. The room erupted in applause. Adrienne stood exactly where she was as photos were taken. Guests cycled through. DeAndre shook hands and smiled and moved through the room the way 4 years had trained him to move through rooms like this. And then, when the last camera had lowered and the last aide had filtered out, he found Gabriel across the room, with the one look that meant he wanted everyone cleared from the room. 3 minutes later, the Oval Office held only 2 people, the President of the United States and the woman who had been waiting, very patiently, very strategically, to be the next president. The corridor, Gabriel, Mateo, and Ayanna. Stepping out of the Oval Office after the signing, First Gentleman Gabriel Whitfield comes face to face with the 2 people who know his husband in ways the public never will. Gabriel stepped out of the Oval Office, and there Mateo was, 6 feet from the door, straight posture, eyes forward. Gabriel saw him. 3 years of watching his husband find reasons to be in the same room as this man. 3 years of seeing the way DeAndre's voice get playful around Mateo. And now this morning, DeAndre using a stroke vocabulary that had not come from their 16 years together. Gabriel didn't need a confession. The evidence was standing right in front of him in a pressed suit. Agent Cruz, how's your day going? The White House feels so loud today, doesn't it? You're right. It's been loud since this morning, sir. Gabriel's mouth formed a smile. He knew what Mateo was referring to, and he was fine with it. I want you to know, Gabriel said, that I appreciate everything you've done for this family, for me, and for the president. Heels on marble. Ayanna Briggs came down the corridor with her tablet and the walk of a woman who had somewhere to be and 2 other places to be after that. Good morning, Gabriel. Good to see you. Hell of a day we're having already. Hell of a day, Gabriel agreed. They exchanged the brief, warm shorthand of 2 people who had been surviving the same impossible building for years. Then Ayanna looked at Mateo. Agent Cruz, I've been looking for you. I have some updates to the president's schedule. I need a few minutes with you, in private. Gabriel watched Ayanna's face, then saw how nervous Mateo started to look. I'll let you both get to it then. I hope your day gets quieter, Agent Cruz, he said pleasantly, and walked down the corridor. Back in the Oval Office, the president and vice president. The room is cleared, the press is gone, and Vice President Adrienne Cole has waited long enough. She's here to negotiate what comes next in her career. Adrienne sat down before DeAndre could ask her to. She was 60 years old, former Georgia senator, the first black woman to chair the Senate Finance Committee, and the reason DeAndre Whitfield's first term had not collapsed in year 2 when the party infrastructure almost pulled its money. She had been the most prepared black woman in American politics for a decade. She had the resume, the relationships, and the patience. What she did not have was the presidency, and she had made her peace with the fact that a black gay man from Chicago with his father's network and a party desperate for something new had walked into it ahead of her. She had made her peace with it publicly. Privately was a different conversation. Gerald Mack, chair of the Democratic National Committee, the man who controlled party money and had been calling both their offices since poll numbers came in. Despite DeAndre's controversial presidency, his public approval was up. Gerald's satisfied with public perception. He thinks you should run for a second term against my personal recommendation, the vice president said. The question is, what do you plan to do with the goodwill? DeAndre sat on the edge of the desk. I'm running again. That's ambitious of you, she said, considering you barely got elected the first time. I know that, but things are different now. You had your father's people, a party that needed a new gay face, and an opponent the country was tired of before he opened his mouth. You know that, right? Yes, I know that as well. Good. She crossed her legs. So, when you say you're running again, what exactly are you running with? Because the coalition that got you here is not the coalition that wins a second term. And the goodwill from the Covenant Act has a shelf life. I know we haven't always seen eye to eye, DeAndre said. We haven't seen eye to eye because you barely used me during your first term. I am the most connected woman in the Democratic Party and you have used me as decoration. So yes, we haven't always seen eye to eye. You're right, and I'm sorry about that. I wanted the country to see me as someone who didn't need to pander to get elected. Being openly gay was enough. Come on, Adrian, we can win this election again, this time with you more out front. The Covenant Act showed me what's possible when we actually go for the big policies. I want to do that for 4 more years, but I need you to do it. DeAndre drew closer to Adrienne, hoping closing the distance will appeal to her senses. You have relationships on both political sides. Your support makes me look like I'm not just some liberal token. You know that matters. Yeah, I know what I'm worth to you, she said flatly. I'm not stupid, DeAndre. You want to use me. Yes, in some ways I do. But let's not forget Adrienne. Being next to the first gay president has certainly raised you up from the political wasteland this party once was. She almost smiled. At least you admitted it. I'll say whatever you need me to say. I need you in the room when I make my announcement. She studied him for a long moment. I'll be used one last time, she said. But if you get back in that office, I need your support for whatever I decide to do next, whether that's running for president or something else. You have to back me fully. Done. Whatever you need, I'm there. He moved closer to her and said, Play nice with me, Adrienne. She looked at him like he had said something genuinely funny. Boy, your gay ass could never flatter me. Do not start. He laughed. Adrienne stood, smoothed her jacket, and started for the door. She stopped. Back still to DeAndre. Oh, one more thing. Everyone in this building can hear you and Gabriel having sex. The Secret Service agents talk about it constantly. I just thought you should know. DeAndre's face went through 4 expressions in 2 seconds. You have my support. She opened the door. Just don't wait until the last minute next time. She smiled and walked out. Sydney Boateng's apartment. 3 years of silence between siblings, and it took their mother in a hospital bed to put Isaiah Boateng on his sister's doorstep. The knock comes late in the evening. Sydney knows before she opens the door. Isaiah has his hands in his coat pockets. No tie. For Isaiah, showing up anywhere after 6 p.m. without a tie is the equivalent of arriving in pieces. Mama's okay, Sydney says, barely a greeting as she opens the door on her brother, who she hasn't seen in 3 years. I know, I called the hospital on my way here. Well, you could have called me. 3 years of silence in the 2 feet between them. She gets 2 glasses of water because she doesn't know what else to do with her hands. He doesn't touch his. I saw you this morning, Isaiah says, on that tacky racist news show. Isaiah, that show is not racist. At best, it's center moderates looking to become viral memes. Sydney, you sit on social media and national television and spout homophobic talking points. You know that, right? You know exactly what you're doing. Our mother and father were best friends with a gay couple named Dennis and Ray who came to our house every Thanksgiving until you were 12. Sydney rolls her eyes. You do not get to use our childhood to shame my beliefs. Wow, Mama is in a hospital bed tonight. I drove 40 minutes to your door because I don't know what I thought. What do you want me to say, Isaiah? Nothing. He gets up, grabs his coat, and heads for the door. You don't have to say anything. Sydney sits in her living room quietly for a long time. Her laptop is still open, the glass of water Isaiah never touched staring at her on the coffee table. The Community Housing Forum, Gabriel and Preston. While the president is at the White House making political calculations, the first gentleman is sitting front row watching a man who reminds him of who he used to be. The last panelist finishes his sentence, and the room doesn't wait for the moderator. A woman in the fourth row is already standing to ask a question. My question is for Mr. Preston Graham. I'm a homeowner in Ward 7. I bought my house 22 years ago. I paid my taxes. I maintained my property. I did everything right. My property value has gone down 30% since this administration started pushing affordable housing mandates into my neighborhood. Who exactly benefits from these housing policies? Because from where I'm standing, it isn't the people who were already there. Gabriel is in the front row watching Preston as he responds to her question with a practiced elegance. Your property value didn't go down because a family moved in down the street. It went down because Wall Street decided your block was an investment opportunity and priced everyone out, including you. He pauses. We have a housing crisis because we let billionaires and corporate landlords turn the place where people sleep into a commodity. The affordable housing mandate didn't hurt you. The people who bought up 40% of this city's housing stock and called it a portfolio, they hurt you. And they are counting on us to blame each other instead of them. The room applauds. God damn, that was a good answer, Gabriel thought to himself as he felt heat rising on his chest. Preston always made him feel faint. Minutes later, Gabriel is in a side hallway with two agents posted at either end, with their backs turned. Preston comes around the corner and stops when he sees Gabriel. Oh, it's you. They told me someone wanted a word with me. They were right. Gabriel extends his hand for a handshake. The Wall Street answer. That was different from what I expected. I've learned the audience appreciates the truth and not stock answers. Preston tilts his head and notices the Secret Service agents. So, you told your bodyguards to keep their backs turned, so we could have a little privacy? The president is going to run for a second term, Gabriel says, ignoring that question completely. I want to build a community advisory board, and I want you to be on it. That's a big ask, Preston says. You're the only person I trust to do it right. Preston steps closer. You sure that's the only reason you came down here? To offer me a seat on a community board? Preston dips his head toward Gabriel's ear. Both agents are still staring in the opposite direction. I miss being inside you, Preston says. Gabriel's knees buckle. His hand finds the wall. I just wanted to extend the invitation, Gabriel says. Think about it. It could raise your visibility big time. Preston bites his bottom lip. Okay, Mr. First Gentleman, I'll think about it. Tell the husband congrats on finally doing something right with the Covenant Act. The White House private study, DeAndre and Mateo. The DNC call is over, the decision is made, and for the first time in weeks it's just the president and the secret agent who has had him in ways his husband Gabriel hasn't. DeAndre hangs up on DNC Chair Gerald Watkins at 9:18 p.m. He sets the phone down on the desk. He is tired. Mateo is across the room. DeAndre looks at him, and for a second he is not looking at his Secret Service agent. He is looking at the man who had him pressed against the wall of the private study 3 weeks ago. President DeAndre picks up a bottle of liquor and pours himself a glass. This is our first time alone in weeks. Things have been busy around you, sir. DeAndre leans against the desk. People keep saying I'm thinking about running again. You heard that? I have heard that. Apparently people like to gossip in this building. He swirls the glass. I heard something else today, too. Something about people being able to hear me and the first gentleman through our bedroom walls. He looks directly at Mateo. You wouldn't know anything about that, would you? No, sir. I haven't heard that at all, Mateo says, his voice completely deadpan. Maybe the rumors are true. Maybe I am running for a second term. If I am, can I count on you? You still willing to protect the president's body? Yes, sir. I'm here to serve and protect you. I'm at your service. President DeAndre takes a large swallow of his drink. Their bodies had gotten close enough that they were nearly touching. DeAndre grabbed Mateo's jacket and said, "You should leave before we cross the line again." "You're right. Agent Rolando is on duty tonight. I'll send him in. Good night, Mr. President." DeAndre doesn't move. Damn, that man is fine, he thought. God help me keep my hands off of him. The presidential bedroom. The signing is done. The second term is decided. And President DeAndre comes home to the only person in the world he doesn't have to be the president for. Gabriel is still in his dress pants when DeAndre walks through the bedroom door. Without saying a word, Gabriel opens his arms and they embrace. DeAndre folds into him, face against his neck. And for a moment, he is not the president. He is just a man who has had a very long day and came home to the one person in the world he doesn't have to perform for. Gabriel holds him with both arms. "I'm so proud of you," Gabriel says. 30 million people have health care now, baby. You did that." DeAndre exhales. "Adrian and I talked." Gabriel pulls back just enough to look at him. Ugh, that crow. He shakes his head. She wants to be worshipped so badly. "Stop it, Gabriel. You're going to have to work with her more." "What are you trying to tell me right now?" "I have something to tell you." "What? That you're running for another term?" "How did you know?" Gabriel looks at him with the love of a man who has been studying his husband for 16 years. "I know everything about you before you do it. Plus, everyone is talking about it. There are no secrets in the White House." DeAndre kisses him. "So I guess you also know they can hear us when we're being intimate." Gabriel kisses DeAndre back. "I know, and I don't give a damn." They both laugh. "You do know me very well," DeAndre says. "I also know some things you haven't figured out how to tell me yet." President DeAndre looks at him. "Yeah, I suppose I know some things too." They sit with that unspoken truth. Preston's voice and Mateo's hands, all of it held in the space between them without being named. That is what love looks like when it is not a feeling but a decision made repeatedly, on purpose. Both of them move up the bed, unhooking and unbuttoning and pulling at clothes with the urgency of two people who have been patient long enough. Gabriel's shirt goes, DeAndre's tie, dress pants, all of it. Each new inch of skin receiving a mouth, a hand, deliberate attention, DeAndre kissing down the column of Gabriel's throat, Gabriel dragging his lips across DeAndre's collarbone like he is trying to memorize the geography of him. "God damn," Gabriel breathes, his hands all over DeAndre. "Baby." They take each other apart slowly, lips and tongues finding places that belong only to this room, hands learning what they already know and choosing to learn it again. Gabriel pulls DeAndre's bottom lip between his teeth, and DeAndre makes a sound against his mouth that he would never make anywhere else. DeAndre works his way down Gabriel's stomach, and Gabriel's whole body lifts toward him, a wordless request, fully given. They move through the night like men with nowhere else to be, which tonight, for the first time in as long as either of them can remember, is exactly true. The sheets twist. The room fills with the heat of two bodies that chose each other. And sometime well past midnight, with the grounds quiet below them and 4 more years waiting on the other side of morning, they finally let everything go. The White House employee parking lot. Mateo Cruz. Alone in his car at the end of his shift, Mateo Cruz gets a message that tells him his secrets are no longer as safe as he thought. The employee parking lot clears out by 11:30 p.m. Mateo is the last car. He keeps a duffel bag in the trunk. He changes in the car, badge off first, then the jacket, the tie, the dress shirt. He is sitting in a white tee in the front seat, reaching for his jeans, when his phone buzzes on the passenger seat. Unknown number, a flood of messages. Images of this same parking lot. Him in the car, and Hargrove on his knees on the asphalt facing Mateo's groin. Mateo's whole body goes rigid against the car door. The phone nearly goes out of his hand. Gerald Hargrove, United States Congressman, on his knees in a parking lot with his mouth full of Mateo, and Mateo's face visible in the upper frame, eyes closed, one hand at the back of the congressman's head. Fuck. The pictures came with an address and a message. Meet me here in 1 hour. Come alone. The warehouse is off New York Avenue, a loading dock, a rusted door, a single overhead light that somebody left on. Mateo walks in slowly, one hand near the back of his waistband, ready to draw his weapon if he needed to. He pushes through an interior door. Ayanna Briggs is sitting in a folding chair in the middle of a concrete room, legs crossed, holding a paper coffee cup like she is waiting for a delayed flight. Mateo stops. Ayanna. He looks around the room, then back at her. What the hell are you doing here? Do you know what's going on? Somebody just sent me. I know what they sent you. She takes a sip of the coffee. Because it was me who sent it. How did you get those pictures? It doesn't matter how I got them. What matters is that you're here now, and you're listening. The butcher, the guy who took care of Hargrove's body, was brought in by authorities for questioning 2 days ago. My guy on the inside of the police force has been keeping me updated. He's scared, and his lawyer is circling a deal. But if he starts talking, even a little, both of our asses are on the line. She folds her hands in her lap. We are both in this together, whether we agreed to be or not. So, what do you want from me? I need a real ally, someone inside that building I can actually work with. Ayanna holds his gaze and doesn't break it. I know what you used to do before the Secret Service. I know the kind of work you walked away from. I'm not asking you to go all the way back there. But we may have to do some things to keep the heat off of us, and I can't do it alone, and I can't trust anyone else. So you want to blackmail me into it? Ayanna tilts her head. Those photos weren't hard to get, Mateo. Which means someone else could get them. Which means, right now, the only thing standing between those photos and your boss's desk is me. If you work with me, they stay buried. I keep them somewhere, nobody finds them. Mateo stands there in the middle of the concrete room, and he knows that there is no version of this conversation where he walks out free. She is not wrong, that they are already in this together. Are you in or not, Mateo? The warehouse is very quiet. Mateo looks at her, at the folder, at the coffee cup she has been holding this entire conversation, like they are discussing a scheduling conflict. He thinks about the badge, the H Street barbershop every Thursday, the life he built from scratch on top of the one he buried. He thinks about DeAndre. One beat, his face doesn't change. Yeah, he says. I'm in. Ayanna nods once, picks up her bag, stands. Good. She moves toward the door without looking back. I'll be in touch. The door closes. Mateo stays where he is, in the middle of the concrete room. Alone, the overhead light buzzing. He doesn't move. For a long time. End of Chapter 4. End of Season 1.
Thank you for listening to Stories Between Us Anthology. You can find every episode on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. Rate the show and leave a comment. It helps more people find us.